This series may very well end up being the finest romance manga of the year. At Summer's End was published in Shonen Jump Plus magazine, and while it was a short run, it was absolutely everything that I love with modern shonen romance manga. Experimental, stellar, enigmatic, touching, relatable. What starts with a shaky execution and hard to digest art evolves into meticulous examples of high-level, studied modern manga artwork and explosively written, yet exceedingly sparse dialogue. At Summer's End tells the story of a middle school girl, Natsukawa, who falls in love for the first time, only to have that object of affection ripped away from her. From here, we see how Natsu deals with her lingering feelings towards Aihara as she continues on with her life. If ever there was a genre of fiction that I simp heavy for, it would have to be romance manga. But take my word for it, At Summer's End has become one of the most visually stunning manga that I've read in like 9 months or some shit, I don't know. Look, I consider myself an exceptional curator of media. I'm writing this script in the club on a Thursday, so everything I say about this manga is going to come off bombastic. But that's because it is. Takuya Nishio weaves a stunning story about how one's first love can have significant emotional ramifications for years to come. Natsukawa is a member of the beautification committee at school, and she often finds herself watching Aihara from afar, whether they're on their way to school or after class when they're cleaning up. Eventually, she starts talking to him because of his love for an old Nintendo DS game. From there, they really start to hit it off, and Natsu starts to come out of her shell. But as she's embracing these new emotions that she's feeling, she sees Aihara with other women, and that really affects her. The jealousy that Natsukawa feels towards Aihara's sister without knowing that it's his sister is evident of young love and how possessive we can be when we fall for someone. Meanwhile, Aihara, he does like Natsu, but he's unable to express himself or even see how she feels because of what he's going through with his home life. His reluctance to fall in love or even build up affection towards anybody is magnified because of his mother's relationships with men. Aihara's mom is a serial cheater, having burned down multiple relationships multiple times, impacting each household for her own selfish needs. This comes to its logical conclusion when Aihara's mom is caught cheating on Aihara's stepfather and he presents divorce papers. This splits up the home and Aihara is forced to move away, leaving Natsu, unfortunately, never returning back to her life. At this point in the manga, you're feeling very emotional, but you don't know in what direction things are supposed to go in. That's where a time jump comes in, and it shows the reader how fickle love can be, not just for Natsu, but for others involved. The sparseness of At Summer's End and how it develops as the characters age is so fascinating. As Natsu moves into high school, there's a lot more detail to the surroundings and the character design itself. While Natsu still hasn't changed much as a person, those around her have. Students are more expressive, they wear makeup, they flirt more, they blush more, and at times you see that from Natsu as well. Not as much as the other characters, but it goes to show that we tend to evolve. As we become older, our views of love become more jaded, impacted by those around us, in our household, in the classroom, everywhere. I really enjoyed seeing Natsu as a high schooler and seeing how she tries to move on and learn to fall for someone new, even if they have some similarities to her original crush. However, the mangaka is an incredible writer, introducing yet another time jump, showing that Natsu hasn't really developed her ability to love. The reason why this resonates with me so much is because as someone who is a dirty Toronto professional, I tend to put a lot of stock and value into my coworkers, how they communicate with me and what they contribute to our projects. I cannot stand to see people who are withdrawn as adults. It brings everyone down, and as someone who is an extrovert, I just can't relate to people who are unable to communicate their feelings in any capacity. Natsu isn't able to get along with her coworkers. She's not that good of a worker, and because of her reservedness, because how quiet she is, this has limited her career options. She's not able to get promotions. She fucks up on projects often. There's gossip around the office due to her quirkiness. She hasn't been able to find a life partner. I wouldn't be surprised if she was a femcel, to be honest. This isn't done as a means of the reader laughing at her. I sympathize with how she hasn't been able to move on, how she often thinks about that boy from middle school who changed her life forever, who changed her heart forever. She makes an attempt to go back to her old hometown, and while it's hard for anyone to accept the fact that they didn't make it in the big city and have to go back home and have to deal with everyone talking about your failed stance at trying to enter adulthood, I think Natsu was very brave in making that decision. Even though it was rooted in her obsessiveness over her old love, you see her finally coming to terms with her reservedness, and she starts to become much more assertive. The fact that At Summer's End ends so quickly with no real resolution, instead leaving more questions at the end than there was at the beginning, leads this story to being one of the finest that I've read in some time. Adult loneliness is a real thing. Many people are going through it. As someone who was in relationships for a while but has been single for some years now, I completely get it. I put my career over my relationships often, but I'm still haunted by a lot of the loves that I had in the past. And it impacts me in so many ways on a day-by-day basis. Even the artwork, which gets more sparse as the characters age, is how I feel about life. I used to be so radiant and excited about everything. Nowadays, I don't have that same sort of enthusiasm for much. Reading At Summer's End's final chapters, as things got more sparse and the dialogue became increasingly rare, that's how I feel like my life is. My early 30s have been depressing? No, I wouldn't say that. But I've been a lot more reflective, and I do sometimes wish that I had that same sort of enthusiasm that I had pre-COVID right now. 9 out of 10. And this manga is a 9, not because it's a perfect romance, but because of how magnificent it is to see an author develop in real time. As of June 2024, when At Summer's End concluded, Takuya Nishio is a significantly better storyteller than when At Summer's End began publication late November 2023. As someone who is haunted often by a lingering love, ASC has touched my core in a way that not many others have done in such a short period of time. We are truly in the golden age of manga.